Hello, Deck It Out DIYers. We are back for month 2 of our Gnome of the Month box. So this month is awesome. It is a summer swimming theme, and so we have a snorkeling gnome. And he is a lot of fun. He has a lot of parts. So in your box, you will receive the 5 colors of paint you see across the top of the screen, glue, 1 detail brush, 5 sponges, this cutout of all of his pieces, and then the cutout of the gnome himself, the chunky part, so that he does stand on his own. One thing I am crafting with today, and I usually do, is wet wipes. You might want these on hand if you get paint on your hands, or I like to wipe it off if I want to use this detail brush more than once. Okay, so to get started, what I did first was I went through my paint colors and I wrote down, you can probably see it, all of the colors that I wanted to paint the pieces. This is the back, so I wasn't worried about it showing through the paint. And we're gonna do some blending. So this is his hand and this is his hand. And so I did C plus W. So I'm mixing the coral and the white to get a flesh color that I like. Gray, I'm gonna do a light gray. That's why we included the black. You might want black somewhere, maybe you want black flippers or a black snorkel, but also so that you have the ability to make the color of his beard the way you want it. Maybe you want an all white beard, totally cool. Maybe you want a gray, maybe you want a black. So we wanted to include those colors so that you could blend and shade and get those colors that you would like to create him. There is a dark teal. You could also add white to the dark teal to make it a lighter teal. So there's lots of options when you start playing with colors and blending. Okay, so to get started, I'm gonna take this apart. There's tape on the other side. So I'm gonna take it apart and I'm gonna put it into piles based on the colors so that when I start painting, I don't have to think about what color I'm painting which. It's already sorted for me. So take time right now to figure out what colors you want to paint, and then we'll separate it into piles and then we'll get started. All right, so I put them into my piles, and you might have seen me in the video taking my pencil, and on my paper I wrote down the colors that I was going to do. Now the snorkel is 2 parts, so he's gonna have 2 different colors happening. So these are little pieces that I stacked over here. When you go to paint them, you'll just wanna make sure that they're facing the right way so you paint the right side. If you paint the wrong side, not a big deal. Flip it over and just paint it. Now, you're really just gonna paint all of these pieces. I wanted to, and his snorkel will fit, or goggles will fit just like that. I wanted to show you a few tricks for these small pieces. I kept my painter's tape, and you might remember that from previous months, but if you're new to our group, welcome. And you want to keep the painter's tape, and if you didn't, you crumpled it up, you could use masking tape or find another piece of painter's tape. But what I'm doing is I'm putting my smaller pieces on the tape, because now I'm going to paint, but I'm gonna hold the tape down with my hand, and then I can paint easily. So what you'll do is you'll get a little bit of paint on your sponge, dab it off a little bit. You don't need a lot of paint for these projects. We will give you more than you need. So I just grab some paint, and then I'm going to paint over the top by dabbing. Okay, and if you have a ton of paint, it's gonna run down the edges of these pieces, and especially the snorkel pieces, you don't want to add paint to them, because if you add paint to the sides, you're not gonna be able to fit your pieces back in to the snorkel. Okay, so this is how you're gonna go about painting. You're just gonna dab really thin coats. Another nice feature of really thin coats is it dries really fast. So you can paint pretty quickly, and then you can let this dry. I'm gonna let it dry and then I will check back. For these pieces, so these are his hands and this is his nose, I'm gonna lay them on this piece of tape. There's plenty of room. And I'm gonna grab a new sponge and I'm gonna pull some coral down here. And then I'm gonna pull some white and I'm gonna mix some up so I get the coloring that I want. And you'll just see that I just kind of play with it until I get a color that I like, okay? And again, you don't need a ton of paint, but that looks good. Let's see what happens when it dries, because again, it's paint. So if you don't like it, you can paint over it. Okay, might be a little dark because I am gonna use coral on his hat. So I'm just gonna lighten it a little bit. There we go. And paint this with some dabs. There's a lot of paint on my sponge, so I'm trying to dab it off. Okay, so you will just repeat this process, dabbing all of your parts. I'm gonna do the same thing I just did for the beard. The difference is I'll put white on his beard first because I think he's just gonna be a light gray. So I'm gonna paint him white, and while the paint is still wet, okay, so I have a little bit of extra paint on here. You'll see I'm not dabbing. I'm just brushing off the edges so I don't get paint on the edges, okay? But while the paint is still wet, I'm just gonna pull a little bit of black. There's not a lot on here, and I'm just gonna add it here. Yeah, I really like it light. So I'm just gonna do this, and again, my paint is still wet. Okay, and that got a little dark there, so I'm gonna keep going. And this is just kind of a play with it until it becomes the color and the texture. I think adding the black and the gray in here to make gray gives it some texture. Okay, it's not just the straight color. So getting it to the point where you are happy with it. Okay, so just keep blending and playing with it. And when you do paint your hat, get creative. I'm planning on putting some polka dots on. So my polka dots are gonna come from my detail brush, which has black on it now. So this is why I have my baby wipes on hand. I will just clean this off really quickly, and then I'll use this for my polka dots. You can also use the top of an eraser to make dots. Really simple to do that. You could make stripes. You could tape it off and do color blocking. Lots of different options. He could also have a solid color hat. No problem. So let's get to painting, and then we'll work on assembly. Okay, DIYers, when you are done painting, I want you to put your gnome together without gluing. Make sure all the pieces fit the way you like. Also, it's a good time to look at your design and make sure you like it the way it is, or if you need to make adjustments. After looking at it, we've decided that we want to repaint our feet because he kind of looks like a duck. So when this happens, you guys, because it is paint, you simply can just take it and paint right over, okay? So right now, assemble your gnome, and if you don't like the color combo that you selected, paint over it, and then we will talk about gluing. When we glue, we're going to use the super glue, and it is a quick dry, and it will glue your hands together or your hands to the bottle. So be very careful with it. I know that these feet fit perfectly because we've already had them. So I'm just going to, see how quick that is? I'm just gonna repaint them, set them off to the side, and I'll take a look at my gnome and I'll be able to start assembling him. In the studio, we don't use this super glue. We use this glue, and so I'm just going to use this today, but in your kit you will have this glue and it will be plenty for your project. Okay, I'm going to start with the hat since we'll work from the top down, and you don't need too much glue. Okay, and you'll want to line up the hat with the edge of your cutout. Okay, I'm gonna do the dot, just put a little bit of glue on. For his beard, I'm going to take my other pieces off. Remember, there's so many pieces to the snorkel gnome. He is really fun though. I am really excited to see what colors you paint your gnome. And I might have to make it a poll in our Deck It Out group, but what color beard is everyone going to use? So here's, this is the order that I would glue it in. Next, I would do his feet. His feet have been painted teal. They look good. And I'm gonna put his feet on just to make sure my whole base is where it needs to be, or the whole back of the gnome, all of the bottom parts are where they need to be. So we'll glue this down. Now you'll notice that I did not paint my chunky. You certainly can if you want. I will probably paint the edge of him after all of this is dried. I'm gonna move to his goggles now. And I'm just gonna try to glue them together. Okay, now if you get extra glue around the edges, you can also use your detail brush to wipe that up. I'm gonna put the goggles kind of right over that crease. And then my detail brush, you might have seen in the video when it, that I just clean it off with my baby wipe. And now I'm just gonna clean up the extra glue that's kind of floating around on the edges and just smooth everything out. Okay. Let's see here. Now to go to his snorkel, I'm gonna kind of lay it, oh, I forgot his nose. So we'll put his nose in. Okay. Again, you don't need too much glue. Set it where you'd like it. I'm going to do his snorkel, the outside part first. And get that in the place that I would like it. And as you can see, I do have some overflow. You guys probably won't have as much overflow because you have a smaller tip on your glue. And your glue is a gel, a quick drying gel, so it's a lot. It doesn't come out as thick as mine does. So actually I'm just gonna put a little bit, I'll just paint it on these pieces. Okay, and because you already laid out all of your pieces before we did the gluing, you know that they all fit and you know where they all fit. Okay, that's also why we lay it out before we glue. So you know, like this one, I needed to push so that he fit better. This little piece, I know I need to turn so that his hand will fit in. Just like so. Okay. There we go. How cute is he? All right, you guys. So, your snorkel gnome, he is very cute. I like him a lot. If you want to paint your edge, I think last time I painted my edge white. Just take your sponge. You can do this before or after you glue. And you can just take the sponge. It's the same width or approximately the same width as the chunky cutout. And you can just run the paint down the side. Now, if you get paint on the burnt edge, just wipe it off with your finger or a baby wipe. And then look at that. He is adorable. Gnomies of the month. Hey, if you had fun creating this Gnome of the Month, you will probably love our newest kit, which is our Deck It Out Tiered Tray Club. And the Tiered Tray Club is also going to be a surprise each month. Let me tell you that this month it matches the Gnome. And going forward, our Gnomes will match the tiered tray sets. So if you're into tiered trays, check out the Tiered Tray Deck It Out subscription box and you will have coordinating decor. Thanks for creating with me today, you guys. Be sure to check in on the Deck It Out DIYer Facebook page. We love it when you share your posts so that others can see and we can see the creative DIY decor you've been making with our Deck It Out boxes. We'll see you on our social media.